Number 7, Americans are workaholics. Obsessed.
This is kind of true. I feel like this is kind of true because the other day I said, so you guys have 1 month of vacation, and you guys, André, what are you talking about? We don't have vacation here. That's one thing that I actually don't want to import from America. Today I will be reacting to Scottish guy debunks American stereotypes. But before I go into that, can I ask you for one thing? If you can leave a like, thank you so much, my friend. This is the best way to show support. If you can subscribe, well, in that case, you already know. Forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Now, link for the original video in my description. I love Sean. Give this guy some love. That said, let's play it.
Guys, I think we've been talking a lot about the cultural connection between Scotland and the United States of America recently. And in today's episode, I want to clear the air on a few things. So that's why I'm going to be talking about American stereotypes that we have in Europe. That's coming right up after this.
Oh, sorry, I should not be laughing, but the way he said Europe was amazing. Let's run it back. Wait a second.
American stereotypes that we have in Europe.
Europe. Oh, I love his accent. I'm joking, but I really do. André, what are you talking about? You have a thick accent, a Russian English accent, and you are making fun of another person's accent. Sorry, I mean, relax. I mean, I was just having fun.
That's coming right up after this. Alright, number 1. Americans are rich. I think America is a rich country, definitely. Like the UK is a rich...
I think this is true. I mean, Americans comparing with a lot of countries are rich. I mean, you guys are the #1 economy in the world, so that means something. But what I would disagree, of course, is if someone thinks all Americans are rich. That makes no sense. I mean, no country is like that. But Americans are rich overall. I think I would agree with this. Maybe I'm wrong.
Rich country. Scotland's a rich country. We all live in rich countries, mostly in the northern hemisphere. But does that mean every single person in America is rich? Certainly not, right?
Of course not.
That is definitely one of the things I learned on my first days in the United States of America. Part of that trip I went with the United States Embassy was really to kind of break down these misconceptions that we have as British people, right? So they wanted to show us everything, the good and the bad and the ugly. And I think that was a good thing,
it's
right?
It's a great
because,
movie.
Like, we all have these built-up images of America and the wealth, right? You get to New York and you see all these massive buildings. California, San Francisco, with all the technology stuff that's going on out there. You know, all the biggest and best companies in the world appear to be from America. I used to actually work for a couple of them. And when you see all this innovation, when you see all this culture coming through on the media and on our TVs and all that kind of stuff, you think, wow, that is a rich country. Of course America's a rich country. It's stupid to think otherwise. But that does not mean everybody in America is rich, right? One of the things they took us on that tour was to see people who are in more impoverished areas. You see really fast, really quickly, there is a lot of struggle and suffering in America as well in terms of poverty. Just like there is here in the UK. We have a lot of poverty here that is not talked about, and I think that's the thing, right? We all in our countries like to celebrate our successes. For example, here in Scotland, we've got a massive homelessness crisis. We don't talk about that.
Oh, really?
We don't tell you guys in America when you're coming to Scotland.
The homeless situation in Portugal, I think is growing actually, but it's still very under control, if that makes sense. Nothing like, I believe, probably UK or America, because America also have this problem in big cities, right? For example, LA. And I think this will always be a problem with capitalism. By the way, I defend capitalism and I think it's the only system that works. But capitalism will always have the other side, you know, a dark side almost that, well, it's... you know, that there will always be people that are really rich and people that cannot benefit of the system, sometimes because of their fault, other times not. But very complex topic and a serious one. But I believe in the system that America applies, capitalism and self-responsibility.
Come and visit us. We've got Loch Ness Monster, we've got castles, and we've got lots of homeless people. We don't say that, but it is a fact. And I guess it's the same in America. The wealth is
just use the castles. No, that was bad, sorry.
Concentrated just like every other country in the world, right? There's a lot of very rich people in America, but there's a lot of poor people. And I actually had one really deep experience that I would like to reference, okay? My first day in Orlando. I left the hotel like 7 in the morning because I wanted to go out and take some nice drone shots of a lake that was next to our hotel, right? I went around the lake, and then when I got to the other side, there were about 5 or 6 people sleeping rough under the trees, okay? I didn't want to wake them up, so I moved about 500 yards down the way, and one of the guys who was up anyway came over and spoke to me. He was interested in my drone, and then we ended up just chatting for about 20 or 30 minutes. He told me all about his life and how much he struggles and stuff. He sleeps in the park. I mean, that is definitely not wealth, is it? Exactly the same as we have here in the UK. So I think these things.
Sean is a great guy from what I've been watching him.
Country with a lot of amazing things in technology and finance and industry, but also there's a lot of poverty. Misconception number 2 that I'm going to be busting: Americans only speak English. The first thing I would say about that.
Okay, I kind of thought this, to be honest, because yeah, but I guess you guys also, a lot of you guys also speak Spanish. Since there is a huge influence coming from specific from Mexico, right?
Point, okay? Let's not even talk about America first. Let's talk about the UK. The level of people here in the UK, and up until very recently, I was one of them, can only speak one language: English. That's the only language the majority of people in the United Kingdom can speak. If you find a Scottish person who was born and bred in Scotland, or an English person who was born and bred in England, they have no language skills whatsoever. And then
I think that countries that don't have English as main language, like my country, we are forced to learn English very early, and so automatic we at least will know 2 language. Actually, here we have to know 3. You have English, and for a specific time, at least when I was studying, you also have to have French. Some schools may give you the option of Spanish, but French tends to be more popular.
They go traveling around Europe, they go to France, they go to Spain especially, and they expect the locals to be able to speak English. So before we start lobbing bricks, let's make sure our house isn't made of glass. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. I can't speak for America on this front, but I can say that in the UK we are really, really bad at languages. The only reason I learned another language is because my wife is Brazilian, so I learned Portuguese, and it took me 10 years. I am not naturally gifted with languages, but most people here are not.
And you already know the most beautiful language, my friend.
I met a lot of people, especially in New York and especially in Florida, that spoke loads of different languages, certainly Spanish. And I think that's one of the awesome things about America's immigrant culture, right? Is the fact that lots of people have these backgrounds from all around the world who can speak different languages. So that is definitely a myth in my opinion. Here's a misconception.
Okay, just one thing, my friends. Because I believe I have a lot of people watching me that know Spanish. If you guys know Spanish, it's actually very easy to learn Portuguese because you'll find a lot of similarities. It's actually something that you could explore to know a third language, if you want, of course.
For you that Americans are fat. I don't know the specific statistics about obesity in America. I know they are pretty high, but I don't know the exact number, right? That's one thing, fair enough. But listen, in Scotland, we are the most unhealthy nation in all of Europe. We are the sick man of Europe.
Really?
That's what they call us, okay? We, I think, have the single lowest life expectancy in Europe and Scotland. If it's not the most, it's definitely in the bottom 3, right? A lot of factors involved in that: smoking, drinking, but mostly it's because of our diet. We really badly here in Scotland. A lot of people don't know that, right?
I did not know this. Actually, I believe the country in Europe that have... this is one thing that Europe is better than America. People disliking the video already, but it is the life expectancy. In Europe, for example, I believe Italy, you live until, of course, doing the average and stuff like that, 87, 88 is something, it's really high actually. And Portugal also does very well there.
We are the sick man of Europe for a good reason. We are very unhealthy here in Scotland. So how can we have this misconception of America that Americans are all unhealthy and eat loads of junk food? And of course, I know that is true as well, guys. And here's another thing I noticed about America, right? Of course, you might have a lot of people in America overweight. Big deal. You actually also have a lot of people who are at the opposite end of the spectrum. I've never ever in my life seen so many really buff people than I saw in America.
No, this is true. I mean, when you look at people in big cities, human and men, they look tremendous in America. It's kind of crazy. So this that you guys have fat people could be true. I mean, we also have those here. Look, I'm not the best person to talk about this because I'm not in the best shape. But when I look at the Americans, dude, there is guys that are crazy, and you guys have a lot of them. It's actually insane.
One way or another, like, who cares what people look like and how they are, right? It's not something for anybody to judge. Certainly not us in Scotland, okay? We are nobody to judge on this. Number 4, okay? Americans do not travel. I think this misconception is based...
Do not travel. This is so dumb, I'm sorry. If you go from Montana to Texas, you travel more than me if I go from Portugal to France. So this idea, so if I go Portugal to France, you guys say, oh, André's traveling. But this is so dumb. It's crazy.
Based on the fact that something...
Actually, I should check if what I'm saying is true. If Montana to Texas is more than Portugal to France. But I am pretty sure it's true.
Like only 30% of Americans have passports. Is that right? Something like that? Whereas in the UK, we've got a very high number of people with passports. But nonetheless, let me just introduce you to something very quickly, guys, okay? That is the Scottish tourism boom that we have been experiencing here in our country over the last 2 or 3 years. We have been exploding in tourists here in Scotland for a number of reasons. Outlander
Scotland is beautiful, to be honest.
Responsible for that. The amazing show and book written by American author Diana Gabaldon, all about the Scottish clan systems, filmed right here in Scotland. Numbers have exploded by multiples of hundreds here in Scotland at all of our tourism sites. And who's responsible? Who do we think is responsible for that explosion in numbers of people coming to Scotland? It's mostly Americans. Outlander is an American phenomenon. Outlander has fans from all around the world. Let me just say that. Everywhere in the world there are Outlander fans, but the most part...
Outlander is what? He's a TV show, because it's not the first time I see him talking about this.
The biggest fan base is in America. Listen, last year, around about 500,000 Americans came to Scotland. That is a lot of people. Okay, so yeah, maybe when you're talking about all of the United States as a whole, it's got like how many hundreds of millions of people? The percentage of that of people who actually travel abroad might be small, but listen, there are numbers of factors to think about here. For a start, America is huge. A lot of the states on their own are bigger than the UK. The United States of America is like the size of continental Europe. And that is one of the big criticisms I have of people here in Scotland and the UK. There's loads of places here that people just don't know about, have never been to in their lives. You know how many people here in Scotland and the Central Belt never go to the Scottish Highlands? It's staggering, alright? So if I lived in the States, there's so many places I would want to explore before even thinking about going abroad. This is a really bizarre...
Okay, to be honest, the thing about traveling, there is people that don't like to travel, you know, all the logistic that have to go into, for them is not worth it. I'm not saying I'm like that, but we all know people like that.
Misconception, okay? Americans are backwards when it comes to science. This one I find particularly bizarre, okay? Fair enough, there are a lot...
Wait, so the best science are from America? This makes no sense.
It seems, of, for example, climate skeptics from America who make a lot of noise. But there are an equal amount of people on the other side from America as well. So I think this is just one of the clear problems of trying to lump everybody in together in the same pot.
I think what happens in America is you guys create a lot of trends. Right now in my country, we have a lot of people stopping roads, making riots because of the climate changing, you know, the global warming, stuff like that. And this started in America. I remember other type of riots that end up happening in America that later end up becoming popular here in Europe. And sometimes did not even make sense, to be honest, but yeah.
Saying they're all the same, because they're really not. And like, just think about this for a second. NASA, the leaders of space technology, travel, exploration in the world, always has been until now, is from the United States of America. Like, who can argue against that? NASA have done some spectacular things. And also, as I mentioned earlier on, technology in America is like way ahead of everybody else in a lot of different sectors and departments. Medicine and healthcare, all that technology comes from the States. So yes, there might be a lot of people who are not really into science and really kind of understand the things that are going on in the world, but there are just as many people who really, really do, much more than we do. So there you go. That is
the thing that a lot of people say that pisses me off actually, and this goes to a lot of Europeans, is that oh, but we have free healthcare here, which is true. I mean, free, I know you guys will say you have to pay taxes, I get that. But for us, we look at that like free healthcare. Well, first of all, free healthcare does not work that great because a lot of people use the system. But let's say it's working great. Well, when people say this, now comparing with America, oh, in America they don't have that. Yes, but they have the best. If you have money, imagine if I was a millionaire. I'm not, by the way, shocking. If I was a millionaire, I would go to America when I have a problem because that's where the best professionals are. That's where the best technology is found. So, you know, this is a weird balance because people say, oh, but it is free. Okay, but for people that have money, I say, André, okay, but people don't have money. Okay, that's another problem that we have to debate the other day. But you guys get my point. I don't know why I go into those fronts.
Definitely something that should be busted. Another misconception. America is a country where religious fanatics rule. This is something that's really, really deep and multi-layered, multifaceted. But I think the thing is with this point, it's more prevalent, much more prevalent in certain states than others. Bible Belt, for example, very heavily Christian, but that doesn't mean that the whole country is. I met so many people, especially in the north, who were atheists. It's a very big mix, and there's also people from all sorts of religions in America. I was even invited to see some of the multi-faith stuff that goes on from people from all different types of religious communities. I was very interested in New York, for example, to see areas that were very heavily influenced, for example, by Roman Catholicism, especially from the Italian communities. And then there was like the areas that were dominated more by Orthodox Jews, and also areas with a lot of Muslims. There's a very big mix of religious diversity in America, and I think that's cool. And the way that we look at it in Scotland definitely is different, right? And let me explain why. Scotland is an old country, right? We have been doing religion, we have been doing Christianity here in Scotland for literally thousands of years, way before the United States of America was even founded or even thought about. And I think the natural progression when you take a time period like 1,000 years, for example, very, very few people now are Christian compared to 20 years ago or compared to 100 years ago. Especially the younger generations, it is not a Christian country anymore. A lot of our churches, for example, are...
This is true, actually. I grew up in a Catholic home, but I would say, again, sensitive topic probably, and you guys know I actually believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I consider, I'm not sure if I'm in the Catholic Church anymore or not, in the sense that I have some different beliefs, but again, different conversation for other day. But I believe in Christianity. That I'm sure. But this is losing. You know, nowadays Europe. I'm not sure about America actually, but Europe religion is not doing that great. Not at all. I was looking at some stats and they are actually quite shocking. Quite shocking. It depends if you think that's how the world should, the religion should not exist, which I disagree actually. But if you think that's good news for you. But religion is going away off the first world countries. Not sure about America, but yeah.
Or mere relics. You know, we have churches struggling to find people to fill spaces as reverend, ministers, and priests. It's just a thing that happens over large periods of time, right? Number 7, Americans are workaholics. Obsessed.
This is kind of true. I feel like this is kind of true because the other day I said, so you guys have 1 month of vacation and you guys, André, what are you talking about? We don't have vacation here. Which I don't believe. You guys still have vacation, right? Probably like 1 week or 2, but we have 1 month, sometimes even more. That's crazy. Comparing, that's crazy. That's one thing that I actually don't want to import from America.
With work. You know what? That's true. I have never been anywhere in the world where people are so committed to work and that work ethic.
Number 1, baby.
I think this is actually something to be proud of, something to be celebrated. Why is that a bad thing? Why is this a stereotype that anybody should kind of pour scorn on? What is the American dream? Is the American dream something that's real or not? Whether it is or not, today it's not something for me to decide, but what I can say is it has been for a lot of people, and it does seem like the place, and I definitely get this impression in America. If you go there and you work hard and you really follow a path, you can be basically anybody you want to be. And listen, I've got first-hand experience.
I love that about America.
I worked for 2 massive American companies when I worked in London for 5 years. Both of them were banks based on Wall Street. And when the bosses from America used to come over, I think frankly they were quite shocked at how many days holiday we get here in the UK and like how quickly we leave the office at 5 p.m. because apparently in their offices they stay until 10 p.m. They don't get hardly any holidays compared to what we get. I don't know.
Wait, is this true? Oh, you guys are really workaholics. I know America is number 1 when it comes to the, you know, number 1 economy in the world. But you guys, is this really true that there is almost zero vacation? You guys go, because I was kind of aware, but you guys work more than 8 hours?
No, I'd like to know what you guys think about this point. Definitely down in the comments below.
Yeah,
Americans
me too,
work
actually.
hard, probably don't get as many holidays as we do. But is it a good or a bad thing? I don't know. I don't think it's bad necessarily. Next one.
It's not bad for the country, could be bad for the person. That makes sense, right?
Okay? Americans are loud. Americans are loud. And what?
Americans are loud. At this point, I believe on this one. But when I say loud, I say this in a good way. You guys really, I think in Portugal, I remember in school we say all the teachers are loud because they have to be. You know what I mean? Okay, that was bad. But Americans are kind of like this. You guys are very excited about life, and you like it.
What the heck is the problem with that? Now, in a Northern European context, let me tell you, Scottish people are actually considered pretty loud, and we are loud. We like to talk a lot. I think
I also have that idea.
But I consider nations that are quiet to be a little bit less fun, less outgoing. What I experience in America are people who are very outgoing, and that comes across as loud, but really it's not. I remember being on a cruise in the Mediterranean about 5 or 6 years ago, right? Bumped into a lot of Americans, and I had a blooming great time with them. We were up partying all night, and I could be as loud as I wanted and enjoy myself. And listen, only a couple of weeks ago, a friend came to me and said they went on a holiday, and like it was a little bit overshadowed because there was a lot of really loud Americans there. And I couldn't help thinking to myself, like, blooming hell, enjoy yourself. That's what life is, right? Make friends, go crazy, have a party. Number 9, and like as I say, we're getting to the meat of this. But this is one I can debunk right away. Americans are rude. My experience is...
Okay, if they are loud and rude, that's a problem. But this one, I don't believe it. Americans are rude. No. No chance.
Americans are not necessarily rude. What they are...
In general, of course, there will be rude Americans, I'm aware of that. But in general, no.
Is more direct, okay? And especially in places like New York, I find people there are very direct, and it's not rude. They come to you and they'll say what they think. I think it's funny that in New York, for example, when there's something going on in the traffic or somebody bumps into you, or sometimes if they get annoyed, they'll just say it. It's not like being rude, it's just being upfront and direct. But on the opposing side, a lot of Americans I met were so friendly, so kind, and so helpful, more so than I had experienced in many countries around the world, let me tell you. That is something I want to debunk. People from every state, people from every background I met, rich, poor, doesn't matter where they were from, I met lots of really amazingly nice, kind people. So it's just something that's not true. And that leads me nicely onto the last point, and this is heavy, loaded, but I think it's something that we need to discuss absolutely, okay? And that is that Americans are ignorant. A lot of people around the world always say this about Americans without even really knowing them.
That's so dumb. Sorry, at this point, you know what? My number one job on YouTube is defending Americans at this point. Americans are dumb, yeah. Number one economy in the world, running the world. The best science, come on, this is so... The best athletes, we have to debate that actually, because I think soccer, no? Okay, maybe also the best athletes.
Or even going to America, they'll say, Americans are ignorant of the rest of the world. And you know what? From my perspective, to say that Americans are ignorant is an ignorant comment. Because at the end of the day, there are ignorant people anywhere you go in the world, right? Including here in Scotland.
The amount of dumb people here, you guys will be surprised. Sorry. I have to be honest.
And we've got
me included.
A lot of ignorant people here who really don't know about other cultures and other places, and they don't know about America. That is for sure. Listen, I was probably very ignorant on my first trip to America as well. I'm an open-minded person. I like to go places and really just experience it and just go with the flow, right? I guess one thing on my first trip when I went, a lot of the talk of that trip was on heavy subjects that we don't really understand here in the UK, okay? Things like gun culture. Because that's something that we just don't understand here. We don't get it because we don't have it. It's not part of our society. It's not something that we even think about. I'd never ever seen a gun in my life until I went to America. So
I would say one thing about this. I think a lot of Americans get offended when Europeans criticize the gun culture. And I think you guys could have a point. But at this point, for example, because I've been reacting to so much American stuff, I don't even care about that anymore. For me, as long as you guys like it, is a right that you guys have, it's fine. But I think also it's important for Americans to see the other side of the equation. What I mean with this. So imagine us Europeans that almost never saw a gun. Of course, with it will automatically be a weird thing. But I think that's normal, you know.
When I went there for the first time and I saw guns, a lot of guns, it was like, oh my god, like a bit of a shock to the system. Does that mean that I'm wrong to think like that? No, it doesn't. But at the same time, as a Scottish person, as a European going to America, and kind of seeing that culture and being in that culture, so it's wrong for me to come to America and put my standards based on my society and how my society is set up on how it is over there. It's just wrong, it's not right, it doesn't work. That is ignorance on...
Sean being based. This is 100% true. If you go to America, respect what they think. I mean, it is what it is. This is so obvious to me.
Our behalf. A lot of people have been going through my old videos of that trip and seeing the fact that I was out there on a bit of a gun day, and that day was set up by the US Embassy to really kind of immerse us in that culture. And you know what? To take somebody who's never been in that culture and shove them in at the deep end, literally, is not necessarily dangerous, but it could definitely lead to misunderstandings. See, for example, how I was handling a gun very nervously, and I just hope you realize it's not something like me coming there and saying you're wrong or anything like that. It's just saying it's not part of my culture, I don't understand it. And I'm definitely willing to, investigate and have a look into it. And I think I did that, right? I got into the deep end, I went to a shooting range, I didn't particularly enjoy the experience. That doesn't make me wrong, that doesn't make me a wimp or anything like that, like a lot of people have been suggesting. It's just different, right? But at least I can actually step over to the other side and look. And I think partly that is what the important issue is on both sides, right? Ignorance is a really loaded word that doesn't really mean anything unless you put context into it. But equally, I met so many people in America who were really open-minded and knew a lot about different cultures, knew a lot about my culture in Scotland, and we had some really awesome, deep conversations about these types of stuff with...
Dude, I have people leaving me comments about Portugal, about things that I'm not aware. And then I look up on internet and they are correct. It's crazy. So yeah, there is a lot of Americans with great knowledge, no doubt about that.
People who were really interested in listening in what I had to say, and vice versa. So, you know, I've met ignorant people all around the world. Is America any more ignorant than anywhere else? I don't think so. Guys, listen, I would love to know exactly what you...
I would bet probably less, actually. If you really put everything together, less. Yeah, I'm saying it.
Thought about all of these down in the comments below.
Oh, it's over already.
What were my impressions like, in your opinion? Do you think differently? Do you think the same? I would just want to know.
I enjoyed this one. Do you guys enjoy this type of videos? Well, leave me the number. You know what? I've been asked, normally in the past I used it to ask a lot of leave the number, blah, 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 because I really wanted to see who watches until the end. But I feel like I have to go back to that because my retention on YouTube is getting a bit lower. So if you are still watching this video until, I don't even know the minute actually, but leave me the number 17. Why? Because it's a beautiful number and it's actually where I stop at here. So yeah, leave me the number 17 if you enjoy these videos and if you are watching this with me. It means a lot, my friend.
In the comments, let me know. Or if you want to send me a direct message, I'm also available on Instagram. It'd be great to get your opinions over there. On Twitter as well, please make sure you get in touch on those platforms and let me know what you think on these things. And I just want to give a special shout out. See these people down here? Okay. Those are the people...
I also have a Patreon, by the way, but support Sean first. My friends, thank you so much for watching. I thought this was an amazing video. Sean always have great content. I like his accent, I like his ideas, and this one was no different. See you guys next time. Bye.